What's up, everybody? Hope this finds you doing well. We're going to go over some of the top news stories over the past week, and a lot of it actually has to do with the flows coming from Bitcoin and likely going into one of the largest IPOs of all time. Let's go ahead and jump into the cryptocurrency market update. You can see Bitcoin is currently trading at around $62,000. It actually dipped below $60,000 at around $59,000 earlier in the past week, and you can see we're down 15.52% over the last 7 days, with a little bit of an uptick over the past 24 hours. Ethereum not faring well at all either. It's down 18% over the last 7 days. BNB down nearly 16%. XRP almost 14%. Solana 20%. We have Hyperliquid 14%. Dogecoin still hanging in there in the top 10, currently down almost 15% at just under 9 cents. Now you can see if we look at the Bitcoin chart from the monthly chart, we can see that Bitcoin is down for the month of June. Obviously, we've only gone through 1 week so far, but if you can see from the top of the market at around October of last year, we are trending similarly to the last bear market, which was in 2022. This is actually, I know you can't see at the bottom, but this is when Bitcoin topped in 2021 of November. We topped in 2025 in October. So very similar. And then you can see there was a cascade down. And this is the June candle, and it's very similar to this June candle here that we have so far. So there is a possibility that we could potentially see some more downside. We didn't get the absolute bottom until December of 2022. So if we are still on the 4-year cycle, we could still see some downside potentially going towards the last quarter of 2026. But there's obviously also a lot of catalysts that could potentially push Bitcoin up. We have the Clarity Act, which is now going to be viewed and voted upon at the Senate of the U.S. Congress. And so once it moves past the Senate, then we could move forward to eventually it being signed by the president if it goes into law. But we still are ways away from that, but that could potentially be a catalyst that can move Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies before the end of the year. But what's sucking out a lot of the liquidity from Bitcoin, as we can see, there were a lot of outflows from Bitcoin ETFs as well as Ethereum. They had a record streak of, you can see the spot Bitcoin ETFs pulled in a net 3.05 million on Thursday, capping 13 straight sessions of outflows totaling 4.4 billion. So this multi-billion outflow is a tremendous amount of money, but a lot of people who got into these Bitcoin ETFs the beginning of January 2024, their average price is around 40 to 50,000. So some of them are taking profits, but a lot of it could be because we are getting ready to run into one of the largest IPO seasons of all time, when 3 of the top AI companies coming onto the public market are suspected to be coming onto the market before the end of the year. SpaceX is already set to be hitting the market this week, which is going to be the largest ETF ever at a valuation of around 1.77 trillion. You can see IPOs on an unprecedented scale. SpaceX is looking to raise 75 billion with this IPO, and what a lot of people don't understand and don't fully go into is that actually only a small percentage of the float, I believe it's less than 5% of the actual shares that are outstanding or that are available through insiders, employees, things of that nature, institutional holders that have been in SpaceX for a long time, they still have the vast majority of the shares, and those won't unlock. Some of them will unlock within the first, I believe, 60 to 90 days, and then there's a schedule where it'll continue to unlock, and more shares will be coming onto the market. So only a small amount of these shares are actually going to be on the market. So a lot of people need to be very careful if you're looking to get into this IPO, because potentially the price could go down as more shares come into the market. Very similar to inflation, as more money comes into circulation, more shares are going to be coming onto the market. And a lot of these insiders that got into SpaceX years and years ago, with the SpaceX coming out onto the market at $135, a lot of them got in at under $10. So there's a possibility that they will be looking to sell because they would have made basically, a 10x and more, depending on when they got in. So definitely keep an eye out for what's happening with that. But you can see that SpaceX is also going to have an impact on some of the major ETFs, including the Nasdaq, to the point where they are actually changing some of the rules in terms of how soon they can get into these indexes. Generally speaking, a company that comes out onto the public market usually has to wait several months after there's several, earnings reports, and there's certain thresholds and benchmarks that they have to reach before they're able to be considered to get into the S&P 500, to get into the Nasdaq, things of that nature. But because these IPOs are going to be so large, Anthropic at nearly being valued at over 900 million, nearly $1 trillion. OpenAI, they have yet to file their IPO yet, but they also are looking at nearly $1 trillion market cap as well. You can see the Nasdaq is maintaining fast track entry criteria, and they would offer a way for investors to gain exposure to these IPOs through an ETF wrapper. So if you decide or do not get into the SpaceX IPO, there's also a possibility that you will have access to it through QQQ if you have the QQQ ETF, which is an all-tech ETF. And so you can see that some of the other benchmark ETFs are not going to be changing their rules, and so you won't be buying SpaceX, Anthropic, or OpenAI until they officially become a part of the index, which are continuing to go forward with their same rules. So we are going to see what happens, but the money continues to flow. People are taking profits in AI. If you are into the stock market, you saw that there was a huge dip in tech equities over the past week, particularly last Friday. A lot of money was flowing out. People are taking profits, taking money because they want to prepare for this IPO, which is going to be coming out this week. So definitely going to be an interesting week. But no matter what, companies like Strategy, which we know they are about accumulating Bitcoin. There was a lot of noise about them selling only 32 Bitcoin out of their 840,000 Bitcoin that they have in their stash. There's various reasons as to why they decided to sell those 32 Bitcoin, and it's part of them potentially having a balance sheet that will be viewed at as ready for being on an index like the S&P 500. So there's a lot of nuance there. But anyway, Michael Saylor, the founder, is hinting that they will be buying more Bitcoin. By the time you see this, they probably would have made their announcement that the strategy holder, that Strategy is going to be buying more Bitcoin. As you can see here, our corporate strategy, this is from the CEO Fong Ling, is to increase net Bitcoin and Bitcoin per share over time. Rumors otherwise are just rumors. So make sure to continue to check us out here on X, YouTube, as well as on IG. You can see the world stock market crossed just over $150 trillion. So it's just going to show that more and more money is going into investments, is going into equities. And we are seeing that crypto at the end of the day is very small compared to the stock market. It's only $2 trillion market cap as a total market cap. So we still have a long ways to go, but we believe in Bitcoin. We believe in the trajectory of blockchain technology. So we're continuing to stack sats. Do you? Thank you so much for watching. We look forward to linking up with you soon on the Networkchain. In the meantime, take care. Bye-bye.